Imagine a world where money makes the world go round, a quote attributed to Germany's great satirical playwright Bertolt Brecht. Welcome to Ethiopia Insight, and today we present to you the complex sphere of international finance, a realm where this quote resonates deeply. Here, the mighty titans of ethics, economics, and politics don't just meet, they collide, often with explosive results. As we turn the page onto the hotly debated topic of lending to autocratic regimes, let's take a moment to set our stage for this thrilling saga. Born out of the ashes of World War II, we have the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank, the twin titans of global finance. Established to prevent another Great Depression, the IMF, with its solemn pledge to foster a world of monetary unity and financial stability, confronts the noble mission of the World Bank, a crusade against poverty and the champion of development, born in 1944 to reconstruct war-torn Europe and Asia. Oftentimes, these giants find themselves locked in a battle between the promises of economic prosperity and the stark realities of ethical quandaries. On the opposing side, we enter the fascinating landscape of Ethiopia, a land in rich history but fraught with a complex present. Under the firm helm of Nobel laureate, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, Ethiopia has been etching its name on the pages of global headlines. However, its daring development ambitions are overshadowed by unsettling echoes of internal strife and human rights allegations. With billions in loans sought for projects as grandiose as the Grand Palace of Abiy Ahmed, estimated to cost $15 billion, the world watches, breathless as a fiery debate rages. The critique is harsh and unforgiving. Critics argue that such opulence is an affront to justice when a large segment of Ethiopia's people grapple with the relentless spectre of poverty. Moreover, as the nation sinks deeper into a humanitarian quagmire amid ongoing conflicts in Tigray, Amhara, Oromia, and other regions, the ethical dilemma becomes upfront. This leads us to our pivotal question. Is it morally justifiable to extend financial lifelines to a regime shrouded in allegations of human rights violations? Can we stand by when these loans might not uplift the common citizen, but instead contribute to deepening social and economic disparities as seen elsewhere? This is the Gordian knot we will attempt to slice through in the upcoming segments of this throbbing controversy, spotlighting the controversial roles of the IMF and the World Bank in Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's Ethiopia. Imagine a country in the Horn of Africa, soaked with rich history, and yet grappling with a complex present. Welcome to Ethiopia, a nation desperately appealing for financial assistance despite being one of the fastest-growing economies in Africa. Data from the World Bank shows an average GDP growth of 10.4% per year from 2004 to 2014. Ethiopia's economic growth under Abiy Ahmed, however, is in a single digit with an estimated 7.2% growth in fiscal year 2022-23. Ethiopia's economic narrative isn't all rosy. Infrastructure gaps are gaping, and the population has ballooned to over 126 million, demanding a more diversified economy to absorb the demographic shock. The government, under the tenacious grip of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, strives to bridge these gaps, baiting global financial sharks for billions in loans. But here's the plot twist. The centerpiece of this audacious quest isn't hospitals, schools, or roads. It's the construction of glorified structures, akin to modern-day pyramids, which the government hails as beacons of national pride and symbols of modernity. These palaces, however, are not without their share of controversy. Critics question the wisdom of such extravagant projects in a country where, according to the World Bank, over 25% of the population still lives under the international poverty line of $1.90 a day. The government counters with claims of job creation and attracting foreign investments. Yet the spectre of funds misuse and the widening of social and economic chasms casts a long, foreboding shadow that stirs global unease. So we are left with an ethical conundrum. Should global financial institutions pour billions a regime with such grandiose intentions amidst biting poverty and internal conflict? We present to you the convoluted discourse of this contentious issue, a tale of aspirations, controversy, and ethical dilemmas. The eye of the storm is Ethiopia, where its debts requests to the IMF and World Bank are causing waves. Did you know that in 2024 alone, Ethiopia's government requested loans totaling a staggering more than $10 billion? This plea has ignited a firestorm of public indignation, unlike anything seen before. Do these financial decisions truly reflect the needs of the 126.5 million Ethiopians living in the country? Critics are taking the government to task, arguing these funds should be deployed not on grand projects, but on tackling the pressing humanitarian crises threatening the country. Imagine, for just a minute, the impact these funds could have on sectors like education, health, and agriculture, but instead, they are being channeled into the construction of edifices, while millions of people are still suffering from poverty. Is this a case of misplaced priorities? Fuel is added to the flames with allegations of financial mismanagement and secrecy. Critics are raising some troubling questions. Why is the government's plan for the use of these loans shrouded in secrecy? Why is there such a disconnect between the proposed projects and the country's pressing needs? Could this just be adding to Ethiopia's already significant debt burden, currently standing at more than $80 billion, both national and external debts without any substantial benefits? Let's move on. Allegations of financial mismanagement are flying, the public is outraged, and the government remains silent. What could possibly be the outcome of these controversies? We'll tackle these ethical conundrums head-on in the next segment, so stay tuned and the revelations might surprise you. Ethiopia is currently grappling with a severe humanitarian crisis and internal strife. Ethiopia now faces an epic challenge. As per the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, the nation is struggling with food insecurity affecting over 28 million people, internal displacement of 4.4 million people, and nearly 1 million refugees and asylum seekers. These aren't just mere words, but the harsh reality of a country at the brink of a crisis. Even more worrisome is the persistent internal strife where violence tied to conflict is no longer an uncommon sight. This beautiful nation, renowned for its diverse regional identities, is now plagued with regional conflicts. For instance, Tigray region has been a hotspot for human rights abuses, with Amnesty International reporting numerous instances of extrajudicial killings, sexual violence, and mass displacement. Similarly, the Oromia and Amhara regions have become stages for ethnic conflicts, resulting in sporadic violence and civil unrest. Many critics argue that the loans by IMF and World Bank will worsen the already fragile situation in Ethiopia, fueling the conflicts, rather than being used for humanitarian aid or peace-building initiatives. This begs an important question. Is it ethically right for international finance organizations to lend to governments potentially misappropriating funds, especially amid a humanitarian crisis? An enigma that we are going to dissect in our next segment. Each year, institutions like the IMF and the World Bank distribute over $130 billion in funds. But how is this colossal sum being used? Do these institutions walk a moral tightrope when offering financial support to autocratic regimes? Could this assistance inadvertently fuel corruption, human rights abuses, or even spark conflicts, especially in places like Ethiopia? The principles of accountability, transparency, and respect for human rights should be the guiding lights, but the question remains, are they truly being upheld? The IMF and the World Bank in recent years have faced scrutiny for reasons other than their funds. There's criticism about a lack of transparency, with critics claiming a veil of secrecy shrouds their decision-making processes. But what is the extent of this obstacle in ensuring proper use of funds and preventing potential harm? At this crossroads, we must shine a light on the unsung heroes, the civil society organizations, human rights advocates, and the international community. They bear the weight of ensuring these financial giants are held accountable, directing aid where it is sorely needed and avoiding adding to instability or human rights violations. Their tireless efforts can cast a light on the often dark world international finance, advocating for increased transparency. We must never forget the human faces behind these issues, the everyday people of Ethiopia. Their lives are profoundly affected by these decisions, their welfare, rights, and futures hanging in the balance. We must ask, are their voices being heard? This complex labyrinth is far from over. What are the potential impacts of IMF and World Bank loans on Ethiopia's development strategy? To give you a perspective, Ethiopia received $3.6 billion in loans from these international institutions in 2020 alone. Are they a boon or a bane? The purpose of these loans is to fortify economic stability and growth, yet there's an underbelly to it. Could these funds be misallocated towards extravagant projects or find their way into the wrong pockets rather than addressing poverty reduction and essential services? On the flip side, imagine the transformation if these loans were indeed harnessed for infrastructure development, education, and healthcare enhancement. It could set off a domino effect, stimulating economic growth and poverty alleviation. Yet the key to this potential utopia lies in effective management, transparency, and accountability. Are these in place? Is there another route Ethiopia could take to realize its development dreams? Consider this. What if aid came as grants instead of loans? What if direct budget support was given to sectors like education, healthcare, and social protection? With effective monitoring, this could be a game changer. What about conditioning international aid on improvements in governance and respect for human rights? Could this push the government towards reforms and better rights protection? As we journey further into this exploration, let's remember that at the heart of the matter are Ethiopia's everyday citizens whose lives will be profoundly impacted by these decisions. As we conclude, we unwrap the complex effects of the lending practices of the IMF and World Bank on Ethiopia and countries in similar situations. The statistics tell a compelling story. These loans has potential to unlock development potential, but can also compound debt issues, fuel corruption, and exacerbate inequality if not handled with the utmost care. Now ponder this. What happens when transparency, accountability, and public participation falter in such critical decisions? The answer is a ripple effect that impacts millions. These tenets are not mere jargon, but the backbone of a robust system designed to prevent misuse and abuse. Consider a world where international financial institutions took a step back, reassessing their strategies, replacing sweeping policies with tailored approaches. What if aid was tied not just to economic markers, but to tangible improvements in governance and human rights? The role of civil society organizations in this landscape cannot be overstated. They are the guardians ensuring aid reaches the most vulnerable, acting as the bridge between policymakers and those in dire need. The question is, are we ready to empower these watchdogs? Here's a cliffhanger for you. What if financial assistance could become a tool for equitable development, not a privilege for the few? Now, that's a challenge worth embracing. As we turn the page, remember this. The ultimate goal of the loans should be to empower, not to create dependency or to widen the wealth gap. The conundrum is daunting, but it's not unconquerable. With the right mix of policies, strategies, and alliances, we can reshape the narrative. Will the lessons from Ethiopia's experience with IMF and World Bank's loans light our way towards a sustainable and equitable future? Thank you for joining us. We have covered a lot of ground today, from the IMF and World Bank's lending practices to the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Ethiopia and the ethical dilemmas surrounding international loans. But we believe that the conversation shouldn't end here. We encourage you to share your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below. What are your views on the role of international financial institutions in developing countries? Do you think there are alternatives to their current lending practices? Remember, your voice matters. By engaging in these discussions, we can raise awareness and drive change. If you found this video informative and thought-provoking, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more. And finally, we want to express our gratitude for your time and attention. We know that these topics can be heavy, but we believe in the importance of informed dialogue in shaping a better world. So thank you for watching, thank you for engaging, and until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and keep asking the hard questions.